This podcast is the sole property of Proud Sports. Our thoughts and opinions are our own.
Yeah. They say I walk like a king, talk like a king. You can act around now, say the same thing. They chasing the fame, they all want the name. But they ain't got what's running through these veins. Say I walk like a king, talk like a king. You can act around now, say the same thing. They chasing the fame, they all want the name. But they ain't got what's running through these veins. Make way for the king.
What is up? It is a Proud Panthers podcast. Beck here with you from teedoffsports.com. That's teedoffsports.com. Also, don't forget we host a Saturday show as well, where I'll tell you now, definitely going to be talking High Point basketball. If you want to catch that, 9 to 11 on Saturday morning. It's called Waking Up Proud, and you can find it on WSJS throughout the Triad. There's a few different signals that you can tune into on the radio, or if it's just easier, which I think it is, just go to WSJS.com, and there you can stream it live. You can also actually call into the show, 336-777-1600 is the studio number. So always welcome folks to get involved with the show as well. We're going to have that. We actually have a interview set up with Doug Eslick, who is the head coach for Forsyth Country Day School, as some high school basketball is going on, and a few different things just around the Triad area that we'll get into. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to today's episode as well. This one, a big one, not only because High Point gets a win again last night inside the Cobain Center, 74-48 over UNC Asheville, but I would say the biggest game that we've had inside the Cobain Center this season is coming up tomorrow, and looking forward to preview that as well. All of that coming up in just a second.
High Point University, the premier life skills university, is ranked the #1 best-run college in America by the Princeton Review. Employers value HPU's real-world preparation. Students love unprecedented access to global leaders on High Point's inspiring campus. And parents appreciate HPU's God, family, and country values. Choose to be extraordinary at High Point University.
Back on the Proud Panthers podcast. You can follow along with me at Stephen Beck TO. And don't forget teedoffsports.com throughout the week, where there's podcasts, videos, blogs, all sorts of stuff there. And we're happy that we still have this podcast, the home for everything High Point University basketball going on, and look forward to talking about really, I'd say, I said it last episode, I felt like this is the biggest week for High Point basketball of the season. And now, right behind that, I'll say again, this would be the biggest game, home game, that we've had inside the Cobain Center this season, coming up on Saturday afternoon. And we'll be talking about that on Waking Up Proud. We're going to talk about it some here today. Before we get too far away from High Point's win over UNC Asheville from last night, 74-48, though, I do want to share time I spent with head coach of the Panthers, Flynn Clayman, after the game. Now, I'll say Prowler was there, and I kid you not, hanging out in the tunnel where we're doing this interview. I'm going to blame him. The interview got cut off, and today, being Friday, the one day in between the UNC Asheville game and a big one against Winthrop, even though I am confident Flynn would take the time to do a redo of this interview, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to bug him right now with what we got coming up on Saturday. So with that being said, we have a portion of the conversation between myself and Flynn after last night's game.
we got Prowler hanging out with us here after the game. Coach Clayman, High Point gets the win, 74-48. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tonight was, I would say, most impressive on our own end. 48 points. I mean, that is hard to really find and nitpick, much to try to fix as we look ahead, but I'm bound to expect that you still see something in there that we could. Now, my question is our outside shooting. It's just one of those things percentage-wise lately that you hope it just comes around?
No, you don't just hope it comes around. You shoot more. I mean, we've been shooting more. We really were. I was disappointed in our shooting and just kind of the speed of our shots, the reps, the amount. We just got a little complacent, so we really turned it up in terms of shooting. Then we shot really well the 2 games on the road. And then tonight, obviously, we hit that funk again. But, you know, you're kind of trading things when you're deciding who to play and who not. And, like, I've just been through this enough with really good offensive teams. And, like, the teams that can win games when they're not making shots are teams that win tournaments. You know, and we showed that today. And obviously, if we were making a few shots, then this would have been over, you know, at halftime.
I've heard you talk a little bit about this earlier in the season. My guess is, though, that you would rather have the gritty defensive performance and kind of muscle your way to a win than shooting lights out and kind of forgetting that identity throughout the game.
Well, I would say we really want both. You know, like we really try to not make one thing more important than the other. But at the end of the day, as a coach, you're putting this equation in your head, like what's going to give us the best chance to win at the end of the day. If it's going straight offense, then if that's my best option, I'm going to do that. If we feel like, you know, the defensive end and that being better is going to be our best option, we'll do that. You got to look at your personnel, and they're tough decisions. They're really not easy when you got the kind of talent that we have. So, you know, I'm pleased with how we're trending on the defensive end these last games, with the exception of Gardner-Webb.
One of the things I noticed really key, I'd say in the second half tonight, was Cam Fletcher with 11 rebounds. That is an element that I know at parts to the season was lacking. What does that bring to your overall depth conversation again?
Well, for us, it's huge because if we're getting rebounds, then we're not taking it out the net and we can run. And it's so important that we don't give teams second shots.
So that was a portion again of our conversation with head coach Flynn Clayman. As you can tell, abruptly cut off there. I blame Prowler. He was hanging out in the tunnel and fiddling around, and man, you know, it's just the way it goes. But like I said, appreciate the time that he gave last night. I could have bugged him again today, and I'm sure he would oblige, but we're going to focus more in on the team, as I'm sure he's doing as well, to get set and ready for a big win against Winthrop tomorrow. We're going to talk about that in a second, but just to follow up on a few things from last night against UNC Asheville, nationally televised game. You just got to start with holding a team under 50 points. That can't be glossed over. That is, yes, you could look at the shooting for UNC Asheville and say, okay, well, for the game, they only shot 31%. For the game, they only shot 22 from behind the arc. And you could say, okay, rough night shooting. Well, if you just stopped there, High Point was 20% from behind the arc, and we still scored in the 70s. So part shooting, I get it. But that's not the all-encompassing story here. Again, our defense will take our team as far as we really want to go. If we defend, get the deflections, which I don't have a number on, but that usually brings in the turnovers and the steal numbers as well. And so last night we forced 16 UNC Asheville turnovers. And you also hear there my question about Cam Fletcher with the rebounds. So we out-rebounded UNC Asheville by 6 as well. When you do those things, our whole success as a team has been pretty much night and day. We defend, we get deflections, we get steals, we one and done on the offensive end for the opposing team. we're winning usually by large margins, right back to where we started the season with, I can't remember how many wins we had by double digits, but it was a lot. So that is obviously something that it's now a pretty clear cut and dry pattern. The other thing that I feel like has to be added to that, our second go around playing UNC Asheville, last time was in 25, this time in 26. Cameron Taylor, although it took him a lot of shots and it was on a very inefficient effort the first go around, scored over 20 points on us. And last night, that same Cameron Taylor ended the game with 5 points. He and the Big South preseason player of the year, Toyaz Solomon, we held 6 of 11, or 6 of 22, I should say, field goal shooting. I particularly like that because that maybe forecasts a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about against Winthrop coming up here in just a couple minutes. The really only other thing that I wanted to kind of highlight that would be different than other obvious things. I mean, I've talked a lot about Terry Anderson throughout the course of the whole season, and he just continues to be that guy, that motor that we can rely on, and he leads the team. I've talked about Rob Martin's speed, and man, that showed off last night. There was a time, I can't remember what game it was. I want to say that it was Upstate at home just a few games back, where Rob went coast to coast at the end of the first half in less than, I want to say it was less than 4 seconds, less than 5, something like that. Crazy amount of speed to be able to handle the ball and find lanes. He did that last night. Again, that 1-2 punch of he and Conrad, really nice to see that those two came back to fruition last night, mostly in the way of Conrad having some shooting struggles of late. But the real other outlier that maybe, I know 100% a lot of High Point fans are intrigued by, but for me, I feel like it's validated to have this conversation. You know, we've had lots of talk about Cam Fletcher throughout the second half of this season for lots of different reasons. This one is for on-the-court performance. The past few games, after he had to miss a little bit of time for the injured wrist, and he came back, there were questions from High Point fans even of, do we really still want to keep playing around with this? Like, how is Cam going to find his way and place on this team? If you haven't heard the previous episodes, I encourage you to go back and find these receipts because I have them. I am here saying, just, give it some time. His personality is what it is. That is something that I've highlighted as just being a little bit of a wild card style of personality. Doesn't mean it's bad. That's just who he is. He is needing to mature through some things. I've acknowledged that, but don't we all? We just all do it in different ways. And then last night, he grabs 11 rebounds. His effort has been there the past couple games. I don't think things have fallen quite as easy or well for him as it maybe did in, the start of the season. But a guy that goes out and gets you 11 rebounds is more important than whatever points he was going to add in last night. Might be more important than whatever points he could add going into the future, although I think that that's trending in a direction where that number too will rise. But this is an element to his game that he, and we knew, adds to our roster that is a needed element. What did I say? I said last night against UNC Asheville, we out-rebounded them by 6. Well, if you take away his 11 rebounds, does High Point out-rebound UNC Asheville? I mean, maybe somebody else was in the area and grabbed it. So let's cut that in half by 50%. It'd be right there close. So I just want to acknowledge Cam's effort on the glass last night, the value that brings to this team. As you heard Coach Clayman say there, when we're able to get a one and done and not have to take the ball out of the basket and get out and run, we're very much more effective and efficient on the offensive end that way than we are walk it up, dribble it out, pound it out. Two things really just jumped to my mind right there. One, anybody that's followed High Point this season would realize that we've had buku's amounts of times where officials have had to give a warning to the opposing team for delay. They don't want us to get it and go. So if they're not making baskets and we're able to get the rebound, we're able to get it and go. The other parts of that is last night, even though UNC Asheville really on their offense just didn't really have much of an answer, I saw a lot of times where Mad Dog Mike, whatever you want to call him, Mike Morrell, was over there trying to get his team, slow it down, whoa, wanting to run some kind of half-court thing because they know. They know where they needed to be to have a chance in this game, not let us run it, not let us play at our pace. Now, out of this game, we currently hold a one-game lead in the Big South because we have a bye the final Wednesday, Thursday night games that the Big South will play. So as we look ahead, as I've already stated, biggest game inside the Quabain Center for the season coming up tomorrow afternoon. We're going to talk about that one. After that, we go on the road. We have one last game, and then we get a bye from there. That game earlier in the week, we get a bye on that Saturday, I guess. So that last game of Big South action, we are able to work on ourselves, get ready for Johnson City. So tomorrow's game against Winthrop is big for the obvious reasons. Yeah, there's this battle going on between the two for the lead and number one seed in the Big South Conference. But really, I think it's big more on a mental side than it is anything else. It's almost like the fabric of college basketball being at our fingertips in High Point for a day where it's just an awesome thing. I posted last night a picture during my time when I worked with the High Point basketball team. It was in 2008. And Winthrop at that time, during those days, was our clear biggest rival. I know now we have, some good battles back and forth with Longwood. Still, Winthrop is obviously there. We've had good back and forth battles with UNC Asheville. This year, we finally, kind of kicked that one. But in the past few years, we had split even down to like where the points were tied coming into this season. So we've had a few different things. But back in 2008, it was Winthrop, and that was clear, cut, and dry. It was coming out of the days where they had made so many different NCAA tournament berths under Greg Marshall that they were already kind of like a Cinderella favorite. I think at the time, though, in 2008, it was like Randy Pill as their head coach, or I think that's right. So Greg Marshall had left for Wichita State, moved forward, and their program was still solid, though. I mean, they were right there, still an NCAA tournament team in 2008. And we battled them in the Millis Center to a 62-61 win on like a blackout night. Students at that time rushed the floor. It was just a cool environment that you can feel. It's fervent. It's like, man, this is what college basketball is really all about. And I'm stoked. I know that is what Saturday, tomorrow, will bring as well. So that's one part of it. that plays in. Glad that our mental state, our guys get that tested, that feeling. Because when you have that extra emphasis, those extra jitters, it plays in. It's good to kind of get that knocked out of the way before we make a trip to Johnson City, when all those same jitters and all that same kind of intense feeling should be on display again. But the other part is that our defense, while it has been trending in these right ways, I think it's best that we have learned and now display that is the way we are going to win games against an opponent that is tough. Now, the part, sadly, that you didn't hear out of the conversation I had with Coach Clayman after last night's game is I asked him about Winthrop, and he acknowledged that they're a team that give us some matchup difficulties. We'll just start with the obvious, and that's Logan Duncombe. I mean, Logan is going to be your, unless something crazy really happens, he is going to be your Big South Player of the Year. Is that justified? I'm going to say he deserves to be 100% automatic first team in the Big South. When it comes to voting that, and I'm not a voting party. I used to be a voter in all the Big South preseason and postseason polls, but I'm not anymore. In the mind of a voter, I feel like you have to decide, is this the best team's best player, or is this the best player that put on display throughout the season? If the team was without him, they would be in some serious trouble. And that's the clear best player that, is top dog over the rest of anybody else. Talent-wise, I don't think Logan Duncombe is the most talented player in Big South basketball. However, I would say without him, Winthrop would not have been nearly as successful. And right now, they're vying for the top of the league. And so you add all that up, he's going to be your Big South Player of the Year. None of that matters for me. What matters for me is that he is a highlighted element to Winthrop's offense. Prosser wants to get the ball inside the paint. He wants to utilize Logan's skill around the basket, which has improved over the course of the past couple seasons. And I would say they aren't dumb. They're not blind. They realize that they get a very favorable whistle out of Logan and his play inside the paint, because the last time we played him, games since we've played him, and I've just been watching, there is a clear and obvious difference between the whistle that an official gives to that dude and anybody else playing in the Big South. You barely put a little pinky finger on the guy. You think about him. I talked about him, and I got blown for a whistle here in High Point, North Carolina by a Big South official. I guarantee it. Right now, the foul differential in 40 minutes at last time I had checked for Logan was 9.4 fouls in 40. To give you even an idea, because everybody always said that Keza got a favorable whistle. He had his little head tilt, head flop back that he would display. And again, he would utilize that to allow himself to get to the line and got whistles out of it. Just as comparison's sake, when he was doing that in his heyday, it was 7.1. 9.4 versus 7.1. We've never seen a 9.4 like this in the Big South before. So it cut and dry, completely different dude, the way that they are handling him. That's a big thing for tomorrow's game. What do we do? How do we defend that? How do we play that on both ends to take Logan and make him less influential. The officials are going to have their way, and me and the crowd, and I know there's plenty others, it will be very vocalized from the first tip throughout that game if it starts playing out that way, for sure. But aside from that, I feel like between Owen, Cam, Terry, I'll start with those. You could also throw in Yusuf and Braden. But just those first three dudes, we've got the manpower there to be physical with Logan. I've seen Owen's aggressiveness and his physicality on both ends. Really, you noticed it more on the offensive end, but it's there on the defensive end. Again, just a couple of games ago, he had back-to-back blocks in a series where the game was over against Gardner-Webb. Inferior opponent. He didn't really have to give that effort, but that just type of aggressiveness on the defensive end is going to have to be first and forefront mindset when Logan's in the game. Push him out of the lane, use your body against him, jar him around, get him off of a spot. I don't know if you are a quarterback fan in the NFL or you follow a lot of that commentary. There's always a lot of discussion about making the quarterback get off of their spot, move them in the pocket, make them feel uncomfortable. Well, it all goes the same for a guy like Logan, who I have seen in the past be, and still is, super soft. He's soft. He complains. He doesn't like physicality. He wants the whistle calls, and probably that plays into it because he'll flail around, he'll be upset, and that'll be an element to it. But that doesn't mean that you just give in and you stop doing that. We got enough manpower, as I said. Even if we have to throw Caden Miller, who I've seen the dude jar his head so hard I would have been concussed, and he just blinked it off and kept rolling. Dad's, got genetics in Caden that are football centered. Even if we have to put him out there to give a few fouls and be extra physical with this guy, that has to happen on the defensive end. Now, on the offensive end, what do you think you do? You take it right at him again. Same guys, Terry, Owen, Cam, anybody that can drive to the basket, head downhill. We've seen it from Vincent. We've seen it from Scotty. Yes, Conrad. Yes, Rob. They do it as well. But wherever we can, try to get him in some type of anxious frustration. That is what has to be done. And a lot of times that would happen most on the defensive end, but on the offensive end, if you are scoring consistently on somebody and you're making their life hard where they're having to expend a lot of energy to defend as well, they're feeling it all over. I'll never forget, it was in the Big South tournament where Bodo had expensed himself on both ends of the floor last year, where he couldn't even get back. I mean, it was hard. There wasn't a way for us to get a timeout, and the whole staff and bench was encouraging this guy, you got to move, and he couldn't. So I'd love to see that on Logan tomorrow. There's other guys, though. There's other guys. Dalen Berry, Rozier, Cody Cluett. I mean, these other elements, they all have to be defended. I would love to see a Braden and Cluett matchup tomorrow. Yeah, I know Braden has had a tough go the past couple games on the offensive side, but he's still right there defensively. So much improved over what he was last year, night and day. Able to stay in front of guys, able to stay with them, has good size, very smart, cerebral player on both ends, but he just knows the right spots to be in on the defensive end. I'd love to see that matchup. What I don't really want to see, and I don't know if this is going to happen, I don't really want us automatically doubling Logan and giving up immediate, wide open exterior shots. I say that because I feel like Winthrop's outside shooting is quite pungent. I mean, I'd have to look back statistically. I should have pulled that number before, but they're capable shooters out there. So I don't really, I'm not too fond of just fully collapsing. I think we still have to play our defensive game, which is a little bit of an all or nothing gamble at times. We got to extend. We got to get deflections. We got to get steals. It's all the same things that I just talked about at the onset. I would like to see us just be extra physical with Duncombe, see how that plays out. If later and he's just ripping us apart, and that's the way it is, we got to make that change. We start doubling, running and jumping and doing some different things on him, like a zone or something crazy. All right, that's fine. But at the start of the game, I really just think it's right here, and it's right here as well. It's a heart, it's an effort, it's an energy. And in the first half against Winthrop in Rock Hill, none of that was there. We were turning the ball over, being lazy with it, couldn't do a whole lot of much. Big time game that I know we can be successful in if we play our game the way that I've described it here today. And the outside shooting will come. That might be the other part. Well, I think that was included before Prowler screwed up our Coach Clayman interview, that the shooting had improved the past couple games because they got up a lot of shots. And then last night, kind of got away from us again on that 20% outside shooting. But I'm not worried about it, honestly. The talent level of scorers on this team, even on a very subpar shooting night for our team, we still put up 74 points. And getting those steals, those deflections, fast break, moving in transition, that'll be an important factor tomorrow. And that is a way that we can score easy. So we got the High Point Winthrop matchup in North Carolina, biggest of the Quabain Center for this season. And we're going to break it all down, including hopefully a better interview with Coach Clayman after this game. All of that coming up on a Monday Proud Panthers podcast.